Business cards are essential for entrepreneurs and really all creative professionals alike. They date all the way back to the 18th century, when royals would send these visiting cards ahead of time to announce their arrival. And to be honest, not much has changed. We still use these cards to introduce ourselves and our dreams to others, with the hopes of creating lasting impressions and hopefully opening the doors to new opportunities. Hey everyone, my name is Melody Nieves for Envato Tuts Plus, and welcome to this course, How to Make Business Cards in Adobe Photoshop. I can't wait to show you how easy it is to bring these designs together using incredible resources from Envato Elements, which, by the way, are included with your subscription. Now, I have specifically made this course to make you feel a lot more confident no matter your experience level with design. Just follow along with my simple steps, and you'll have cool, professional-looking business cards in no time at all. Starting with the basics, we'll dive into everything you need to know about business cards, including the appropriate sizes, formats, and guidelines, along with an overview of all of our designs and the tools you'll need to know how to make them. Then we'll create the cards. Each features a front and back design using simple shapes, premium fonts, and incredible stocks and patterns. By the end of this course, you'll have so many graphic design techniques under your belt, along with 3 multi-purpose templates you can totally customize yourself. Use them as is or update them easily for a brand new business card made by you. So, are you ready to get started? Let's begin with the first lesson. Hey everyone, and welcome back to this course. Like with many print designs, business cards come with a standard set of sizes, dimensions, and guidelines required for a professional result. And sometimes these are the areas where designers have trouble the most. So in this video, we'll go over these topics before setting up our files with the right guides. Now, you'll often see that the standard business card size comes in a small 3.5 by 2 inches card. But for the purpose of this course, I'll be basing my card sizes and design on what you may normally see from the templates available with your subscription to Envato Elements. In this case, you may see that some of these cards are a little bigger to mostly account for bleed. But if you are having some difficulty finding out the right size for your card, just make sure to contact your printer beforehand to get the right specs. Most online printing services also allow you to see and even directly download business card templates beforehand, so you don't necessarily have to follow my sizes strictly. For this course, every time I go to create a new document, I'll be creating each card at 3.75 by 2.25 inches. While we're here, we'll also need to make sure the orientation is set to horizontal for horizontal-based cards, and the resolution is set to 300 pixels per inch. If you're new to print design, try not to get too confused or worried about these settings just yet. Because this card will ultimately be printed out, it simply requires a much higher resolution to make sure that our designs come out as crisp and clean as possible. The next setting we'll need to change is the color mode. Make sure this is set to CMYK, the official color model used for professional printing. Out of all the other settings, this is one of the most important that will directly impact your design. In fact, at one point I made a mistake earlier with one of my templates by forgetting to change the color mode to CMYK. Now, if you do find yourself doing this, you can easily change the setting later by opening your document again and going to Image, Mode, and selecting the CMYK option. The only problem is that you'll instantly notice how it dramatically impacts the colors on your screen. They may even look a lot more dull. The reason for this is because, unlike computers, your phone, or other digital devices, the color mode is usually set to RGB, or red, green, and blue. These particular color channels offer millions of colors to work with, making your images incredibly vibrant and beautiful. But unfortunately, traditional printing machines just haven't gotten that far yet. Oftentimes, they're only working with CMYK colors, a much more limited range of colors like cyan, magenta, yellow, and K for black. These colors work specifically with the traditional 4-color printing press machines, so it's a necessity to make sure this option is set when creating your new document. Now that your document is made, be sure to save it with the right title. I usually make a distinction between the front and back files because we will need to separate the front and back designs on completely different PSD files. Later on, when we're actually making the cards, I'll show you a quick cheat around this, but for now, we'll just give it a standard name. To help your printing process even further, we'll also need to set up the crop marks or bleed lines. If you're familiar with my previous course, How to Make a Flyer, we learned together the importance of crop marks when it comes to professional printing. Crop marks basically show the areas where the printer has room to cut the paper before it truly affects the design. Printing is not a perfect process, so these lines will also help become essential guidelines for us as we navigate them to make sure that important elements like names or logos aren't too close to the edges of the card. So let's create the bleed lines on this new document. Create a new layer, then hold Ctrl-R to bring up the rulers option. Guidelines for your print designs can be set up manually by simply dragging them out from the rulers. But for more precision, we'll use simple math and the new guide option to set up our bleeds. To get these numbers, you may need to ask the printer directly before moving forward. In my case, I'll be using bleed lines of 1/8 or 0.125 inches. So the first guidelines will be set at 1/8 of an inch away from the border, both horizontally and vertically. Then we'll need to subtract 0.125 inches from the width and height of our document to find the other values. Place the first guidelines. Go to View, New Guide. Create a vertical guideline at a position of 0.125 inches. Then go to View, New Guide again, and create another vertical guideline at 3.625 inches. Repeat the process for the remaining guides. Go to View, New Guide, and switch the orientation to horizontal for a horizontal guide. Position the first one at 0.125 inches, then go back again and position the second horizontal guide at 2.125 inches. Now that your guides are set, you might want a physical reminder of these areas for yourself and the printer. So select a new layer and use the rectangular marquee tool to create a rectangular selection that connects all the guideline points. Then right-click and select Stroke. Stroke the selection with a black color of 2 pixels, then deselect it. Keep in mind that this black border is not a part of the actual design. It just helps to remind us that we must keep everything that's important within this area just in case the printer takes a little more off than you'd like. To help differentiate it from your other layers, feel free to keep it at the top of your Layers panel and color code the layer by right-clicking the visibility icon and selecting Red. Now that we have our basic template set, let's move on to the next lesson, where we'll learn how to organize our file and run through a brief overview of our designs. Hey everyone, and welcome back to this course. Now that we've learned more about standard business card sizes along with basic bleed lines, it's finally time to dive into the designs, beginning with the file organization. Each file in this course has been set up with what you may see in actual real-world situations. They also resemble the templates already available to you on Envato Elements. So I don't know about you, but I'm not always the greatest at keeping things tidy. But what I'm hoping to do is help you get into certain habits that will make your design life just easier overall. And file organization is just one simple way to do that. So similar to my flyer course, we'll be separating the details of each card into different groups. To create a new group, just select the group folder icon and rename it as you see fit. But what I recommend is to separate major details by their function. So shape layers would go into their own group folder, as well as text layers. You can help your files even more by choosing to color code these groups. Right-click the visibility icon and select the color you want. Once each group is set up and color-coded, you can begin adding all your fancy elements. To find out what we'll be using for these designs, let's run through a quick overview. Our first business card features a minimalist tropical theme, inspired by this beautiful pack of jungle patterns from Envato Elements. Now, when you're making a business card, it's best to design your details around the same color scheme. This will not only help to reinforce your brand, but it gives your cards that ultra-professional and high-class look. So with this particular design, you'll see that I've incorporated the colors from the original pattern into the borders, icons, and even all the text that is displayed. Although the front and back designs are similar, I've made some slight changes to keep our audience engaged and hopefully intrigued enough by what we have to offer. For the most part in these lessons, we'll create with either premium fonts from Envato Elements or ones you can just grab easily online. Keep in mind that links to all the fonts and stocks used will also be available to help you find everything you need. On the back, I've continued the same pattern. keeping many of the exact same fonts as before, but just in a smaller size. I've paired it with a set of minimalist business icons to continue this look and even included a map just in case your business location is hard to find. Now for the next card. Our second design has a cool photographer theme, but keep in mind that you can interchange every single one of these pictures for other portfolio images centered around design, art, or anything else. The main photo to the right is a beautiful foggy landscape that is paired with more cityscape and urban scene images. So when you're looking for your own stocks or replacing these images with portfolio material, just remember that you can always balance out the composition by choosing images with the same colors or mood. Luckily, I had so much fun with these that I've also incorporated a simple photographer logo from Elements. Now the back of the card is similar to our first design. Just like before, we're using an image as the main part of the design and then sectioned off all the other information within a clean box. This helps because if we just put everything on top of our picture, the text might get lost or become hard to read over all those tree details. Similarly, I've written basic details throughout all the cards, which usually include the phone number, email, location, and website address. Pair them with another business icon set like this one so that it matches the fonts and theme. Let's move on to our last design. Now our last business card is perfectly suited for those who don't want a complicated card. It's really great for artists because it uses a bold color and pattern to draw you in. This final design is inspired by this amazing pack of doodle patterns from Envato Elements. Because they're so busy and graphic, you don't want to add too many confusing elements that might crowd your card. I decided to pair it with this lovely blue color as a nice contrast to the black and white sketches. Just like our first card, we'll also use simple shape tools to create minimalist shapes to hold our card details. The front features your name as the logo, which is always a good alternative if you're having trouble coming up with a logo design. Now the back changes things up a bit by decorating the card with two doodles stretched across the original blue color. To highlight your name, we'll use a black rectangle that matches the doodle pattern while including the same contact details below. Business cards should feature personal information you're truly proud of. So I'll show you another cool way to highlight your work experience on the left-hand side. So that completes the overview and basic breakdown of all these business cards. Let's start with the next lesson, where we'll learn how to make our first design, a minimalist business card. Hello everyone and welcome back to this course. Now that we've gone through an overview of our designs, let's dive right in to the first business card, inspired by beautiful tropical patterns. Create a new document in Photoshop at 3.75 by 2.25 inches. Set the resolution to 300 ppi and make sure that the CMYK option is selected for the color mode. I'll write down the title real quick as the minimal card, and I'll also include that this will be the front side of the card so that I can find it easily within my files. Now let's move on to the guidelines for the bleed. Create a new layer and name it either Guide or Bleed. Then right-click the visibility icon and change the layer color to red. Now set up a new set of guides. Go to View, New Guide, setting a vertical guide at 0.125 inches. Then go to View, New Guide again, setting a horizontal guide at 0.125 inches. Repeat this process for the last two. Go to View, New Guide, and create a horizontal guide at 2.125 inches. Then finish up with the last vertical guide at 3.625 inches. Mark this area with a simple black border. Select the rectangular marquee tool and make a selection. Right-click to stroke the selection with a black stroke of 2 pixels. You can either use the blue guides or this border to help you design the card. For our first business card, we'll be basing the majority of this design, including the theme and colors, on this incredible pack of jungle patterns from Envato Elements. So open Jungle Pattern 2 and hold Ctrl-A to select the pattern. Copy and paste the pattern onto a new layer before inserting the layer into a new group named Background. You'll notice that we'll definitely need to resize it, but for the moment, I want to take this opportunity to play with the design of the card. So hold Ctrl J to make 2 more copies of this background. Once they're copied, we can now change the size of each one so that we now have 3 different versions to choose from for our final background. Use the Move tool to move the pattern around the canvas. See which parts of the pattern would look best for this card. Here's what I'll settle on for the first background. Now unhide background number 2 and use Ctrl T to resize the pattern. Make it only slightly smaller this time as you push it around the canvas to find the sweet spot. Just tap a few times or hold the arrow key for the direction you would like to push the pattern in place. Now resize the third image. Unhide background 3 and hold Ctrl T to make it much smaller than the other ones. Now that we have all 3 options ready, I'm going to experiment really quickly with another pattern. I also really love pattern number 3 from the same jungle pack. I'll create a new group dedicated to these new background ideas. Then I'll copy and paste pattern number 3 onto a new layer and make 3 separate copies scaled to 3 different sizes. When we're through, we'll also have another great set of backgrounds we can use as a quick alternative. Once the other details of the card are complete, I'll then show you how these new patterns look. Start building the rest of the card. So make a new group called Shapes. Then select the Rectangle tool and click on the canvas. Create a rectangle at 755 by 281 pixels. Then change the color fill to white. Center it easily using the Smart Guides. This simple rectangle will hold the branding of our logo name and tagline, so let's create a quick border. Right-click the layer and go to Blending Options. Add the Stroke option and use the Eyedropper tool to pick up this light green color directly from the leaves. Make sure the position is set for the inside and the size set to 15 pixels. Position it a little higher by selecting the Move tool and tapping the up arrow key. Let's add another shape. Select the Rectangle tool and create a rectangle at 704 by 226 pixels. You don't necessarily have to include the numbers after the decimal, those are just the ones from my original template. Now position the new rectangle within the first. It'll briefly disappear, so let's right-click the layer and go to Blending Options to add another border. Select Stroke and use the Eyedropper tool to grab this light salmon color from one of the flowers. Keep the rest of the settings the same, then reposition the shape for more balance. Now this whole time, we've been designing with this particular background pattern, but I've decided to change my mind. So go back into the background group and hide the third one so we can use the second image as the final background. Instantly, it already starts to feel a little better for the composition. All we have left to do for the front of the card is add the text. Create a new group named Text. Then select the Text tool and write the words Marison Design. For the color, I just grabbed this nice green color right from the center of the leaves. We'll be using It's Marison Brainy from Envato Elements in the regular style at 25 point. The next step we'll take is to adjust the kerning or spacing between the letters. Right now, the letter E in the word design is a lot further away from the D letter than I'd like. So to adjust this, I'll position the text marker between the letters, then hold the Alt key while tapping the left arrow to bring the letter D much closer. Now let's add the tagline. I've created this card with the idea in mind that this would be for an interior designer's business. So right below the words Marison Design, we'll write Luxury Interiors and Goods. In the case that you're unsure of which font to choose, just cycle through all the fonts on your computer to find the one that works best. I'll go with this Roboto font in a thin style at 4.5 point. We'll add the color by playing around with the colors already on the canvas. So let's choose this beautiful salmon color from the border as the official tagline color. This last detail completes the design of our front business card. All you have to do now is get ready for the back. But instead of going through the same old steps we did before for meticulously setting up each document, I'll show you a quick cheat. Make a copy of this exact same file by going to Save As and changing the name to the back of the minimal card. This simple cheat means that we now have a card that automatically has the bleed guide set up and keeps our original background images in place in case we want to use them again. So get started with this next composition by deleting all the other groups except for the original background patterns. I've decided to go with the larger background pattern, background 1, because I really like the idea of letting this subtle change elevate the total experience of the card. Create a new group for the shape layers. Then select the rectangle tool and create a white rectangle at 1010 by 561 pixels. Position this rectangle in the center of the card. Since we used borders on the front of the card, let's try them out on the back. Right-click the layer and go to Blending Options. Add a new stroke with a size of 10 pixels this time, and the same light green color from the leaves. Now create 3 more new groups. One for the location map, the second for the icons, and the last one for the text. Let's add the logo from before. Just like the front design, we'll write Marison Design on the back in the same Marison Brainy font at a regular style, but this time much smaller at 15.5 point. Position the company name in the upper left corner and don't forget to add the tagline. Write Luxury Interiors and Goods beneath it in the Roboto thin font with a size of 5 point. I won't change the tagline color because it might be hard to read at a much smaller size. Moving on to the cardholder's name, we'll switch things up by throwing a new font into the mix. So write Sam Smith or your name in the upper right corner in Bambi Regular at a size of 29 point. To make this font appear a little thinner, we'll add a quick border. So right-click the text layer and go to Blending Options. Add a stroke of 1 in the same light green as before. Finely tune the spacing between the letters using the Alt and arrow keys, depending on how you would prefer your name to look on the card. Next, we'll write the job title. This card doesn't belong to the company owner, but rather an employee. So we'll write the words Creative Director with the Enrique light round font at a size of 6 point. Position this title right in the center, below the cardholder's name. Select the line tool and create a black horizontal line with a weight of 1 pixel. Adjust the width to 350 pixels and change the color to the same light green from before. Now for the contact details. Let's start with the map. Click on the map group and select the rectangle tool. Create a new rectangle at 400 by 250 pixels. Then change the color to salmon and position it on the left side. We'll be using this layer to insert a map for our business's location. Right-click the layer and select Convert to Smart Object. Go back to the Shape group and select the Line tool. Create a new vertical, light green line at a weight of 1 pixel. This will help separate the main contact details from the map. So before we write even more information, let's include the icons next. Here I'll be using the PNG versions of these 50 business glyph icons from Envato Elements. Hold Ctrl-A to select each icon and copy and paste each one onto their own new layers. Use the arrow keys to position each one, making sure there is enough equal balance between the icons. Their original color is black, but you can easily adapt them to your brand by adding a new adjustment layer. So add a new adjustment layer of hue and saturation and set it as a clipping mask to the group. Change the hue to 138, the saturation to 82, and lower the lightness to -8. Now we have 3 icons in a nice green color scheme that matches our brand style. Let's move on to our final text. Just like before, we'll be using the Enrique light round font, this time at a size of 6 point. Write out the phone number, the email address, and then the website URL. Position each one to match up with their corresponding icon as best as you can. The final details we'll need for this card are the address and the map. First, type out the location underneath the salmon rectangle with the same Enrique font, but this time at a size of 5 point. For the location map, we'll be taking a simple screenshot from the OpenStreetMap website, which is a free resource we can use for this special detail. Then hit the print screen key on your keyboard and copy and paste the result into a new document. Make a quick selection to grab the area you need, then copy and paste the result within the Smart Object layer designated to the map. Resize the map until you have the business location well within view, and make sure to save the Smart Object when you're finished. You have now just completed the back of this design. Feel free to try out other pattern options by unhiding the other layers within the background group. You can also experiment with different patterns from the same jungle pack, like this beautiful rich blue design. With all the elements and colors already in place, you'll see that the new pattern still matches the style we're going for. This completes the lesson for our first business card. Let's dive into our next design, which features a fun photographer's theme that's great for all creatives. Hello everyone and welcome back to this course. Next up, we'll be creating this cool business card inspired by photographers and creatives. So let's jump right in. Create a new document in Photoshop using our previous dimensions. Luckily, Photoshop keeps them saved in your recent items. So create a new 3.75 by 2.25 inches card at 300 ppi and a CMYK format. Move on to the bleed lines. Create a new layer and name it Bleed. Then right-click the visibility icon and change the layer color to red. Now set up a new set of guides. Go to View, New Guide, setting a vertical guide at 0.125 inches. Then go to View, New Guide again, setting a horizontal guide at 0.125 inches. Repeat this process for the last two. Go to View, New Guide, and create a horizontal guide at 2.125 inches, then finish up with the last vertical guide at 3.625 inches. To mark this bleed, select the rectangular marquee tool and make a selection. Right-click to stroke the selection with a black stroke of 2 pixels. If it's too distracting, feel free to hide this layer and use the blue guidelines instead as your reference. Next, add a new group for the background. Then select the rectangle tool and create a black rectangle that fills up the entire document. This is where we'll place our mountain background image. So right-click this layer and convert it to a smart object. Then go to the mountain forest image and hold Ctrl-A to select it. Copy and paste it onto a new layer within the smart object. Resize it by holding Ctrl-T so that it fits well within the document. Let's flip this image. Go to Edit, Transform, Flip Horizontal. Then save the smart object, making sure it's positioned exactly how you want it. Now create a new group for the photos. Although this card is dedicated to photographers, you can also use it for other creative industries and to show off your portfolio. Select the rectangle tool and click the canvas. Create a black rectangle at 391 by 223 pixels and position it in the top left corner. Make 2 more copies of this shape. Stack these copies one on top of the other until the left side is completely filled. You may need to use the Move tool and arrow keys to position them at the perfect distance from one another. Then right-click each one and convert them all to smart objects. Now we can update them with amazing stock photos. I'll be using these beautiful images from Envato Elements, but you can definitely use your own pictures instead. Let's start with the city. Copy and paste the city image onto a new layer within the first smart object. Resize the image, then save it right away. You may notice that some details spill off into the danger zone past the bleed lines, so feel free to use your own discretion when positioning each image. Now double-click the second smart object and copy and paste the black and white portrait onto a new layer. Resize the portrait. Move on to the last smart object. Copy and paste this rainy day picture onto a new layer and resize it to fit before saving the smart object. In this case, the bike doesn't really have to be aligned with the other pictures. We've chosen colors that still match the top city image, and the bits of green within it go so well with our mountain picture. Now we'll add a few more details to complete the look. Select the layer for the background image and right-click to go to Blending Options. Add a black color overlay that's set to color dodge and an opacity of 25%. This subtle change adds just a little more contrast to the mountain picture. Then create a new layer above it and right-click to set it as a clipping mask. You may have noticed we have some gaps between these images we need to fill. So select the rectangular marquee tool and make a selection. Fill the selection with the color black. Then use your arrow keys to tap it over to the left if it's sticking out too much. Now create a new group for the logo. Then create a new layer and rename it. Select the ellipse tool and click on the canvas to create a black circle at 305 by 305 pixels. Position it towards the center of the mountain, then set the layer blend mode to screen. For this design, we'll be using this Leo Photo logo template, but I'll just need to change the color. Create a quick copy and go to Image, Adjustments, Hue and Saturation. Set the hue to 0, the saturation to 25, and the lightness to 100 for a completely white logo. Now make a selection around just the symbol and copy and paste it onto the logo layer. Resize it with the free transform tool before converting it to a smart object. This design really looks best with a white logo, but if you still want your normal color, just update the smart object with a resized version of the original logo. Here's what it would look like. Now let's add the company name. I'll go back to the white logo for this step. Because the name is a part of the logo, I won't be creating a separate group, so just use the text tool to write Leah Photo in the Ubuntu font at a size of 10 point and a bolded style. This is the original font from the logo template, so we'll just go ahead and use what already works. Now we'll add the word photography in Ubuntu regular with a size of 7 point. When you're happy with the card, make sure to color code each group in the template however you see fit. Here is the final front design. Let's move on by making a cool design for the back. Just like our previous card, we'll use our little file trick to help us retain the same dimensions and some of our details. So save a copy of this card, but rename it as the back. Now delete the photo group, since that's the only one we won't need. We get to start the back design with the exact same background as before, and since we just copied the file, the images should still line up pretty perfectly. Let's move this logo. Select the entire logo group and resize it. Make it much smaller, and place it in the top right corner right where it meets the bleed lines. You don't want your logo to get cut off in the final printing, so if anything, make sure this singular detail stays away from those edges. Now create a new group below it for the shape layers. Select the rectangle tool and create a white rectangle at 521 by 614 pixels. This shape will hold our contact information, so place it on the left-hand side. Now create two new groups for the icons and text. Add the cardholder's name to the text group in the same Ubuntu font as before. This time we'll write the name Jack S. Wyatt with a bold italic style at a size of 15 point. You should always want your name to stand out the most for business cards, so just beneath it, we'll add the job title at a size of 6 point in Ubuntu Lite. There are many parts of your work experience you can add to your card. I would suggest adding certain details that can either wow people or show them that you are a recognized expert in your field. In this instance, I'll write 2020's best photographer at a size of 7 point right at the top. We'll also change it to this nice bluish-green color to match the green landscape in the background. I'll go with the Enrique light round font for a nice result. Let's write Pix Magazine, since it is a photographer's card after all, in the Ubuntu regular font at a size of 4 point. Next, we'll add some horizontal lines to separate our work specialty. Select the shape group, then grab the line tool and create a horizontal, light gray line with a weight of 1 pixel. Adjust the width to 330 pixels, then center the line. Hold Ctrl J to create a copy of this layer, bringing the second line down so we can add some text to the middle. We'll write the words portraits, weddings, and events, and set it to Ubuntu Lite for some slight emphasis on this area. Then lower the font size to 5 point. If you really want to make sure your text matches the background, just select the text color and use the eyedropper tool to pick the best color from the photo. I'll go with this grayish green color since you can still see it on the card. Now let's add our contact details. Starting with the website address, select the rectangle tool and create a rectangle at 261 by 43 pixels. Center it towards the bottom, then add your website address in the middle. Write the URL for leahphoto.com in white, making sure to set the font to Ubuntu Regular at 6 point. Let's add the icons. Open your business icons into Photoshop. I'll be using ones from this minimalist set. Select the contact icons, then copy and paste them onto new layers, one after the other. Before we move on, use the magic wand tool to select the white areas within the envelope icon. Hit the delete key so we can remove these parts and recolor them more easily. Now select each icon layer and hold Ctrl T to scale all three down in size. Feel free to include only the information you're comfortable with. I'll add a mock phone number, email, and street address, all in Ubuntu Regular with a size of 5 point. You can also keep the same font color as the top quote for more color harmony. To change the colors of the icons, Right-click the layer and go to Blending Options. Create a color overlay with a slightly darker color than our font. Then copy the layer style and paste it onto the other icon layers. Once you're finished, all you have to do now is color code the groups for more organization. Here are the final front and back designs of our card. For a custom look, feel free to use adjustment layers to change the color scheme to black and white, or even consider updating the back of the card with a different graphic. Here is how it would look with the other photos from the front of our card, from the city to the portrait, and finally, the nighttime scene. Which one is your favorite? Now that we've completed this design, we just have one more card to go. So let's tackle that project in our next lesson, where we'll learn how to make an artist-themed business card. Hello everyone, and welcome back to this course. I hope you've enjoyed making 2 incredible business cards with me so far. Let's complete the experience with one more design, inspired by a quick, artistic theme. Since Photoshop saves our recent documents, let's create a new one at the same dimensions as before. Now give this card a name, making sure to include that it will be the front side of this card. Let's get started with the bleed lines. Create a new layer and name it Bleed. Then right-click the visibility icon and select Red. Now create a new set of guidelines with the same values as before. Go to View, New Guide, setting a vertical guide at 0.125 inches. Then go to View, New Guide again, setting a horizontal guide at 0.125 inches. Repeat this process for the last 2. Go to View, New Guide, and create a horizontal guide at 2.125 inches. Then finish up with the last vertical guide at 3.625 inches. Select the rectangular marquee tool and make a selection. Right-click to stroke the selection with a black stroke of 2 pixels. Feel free to hide this layer if need be and use the blue guidelines as your reference. Now set up your first group. Create a new group and name it Background. Select the rectangle tool and make a black rectangle that stretches across the entire card. If you're worried that the square might not cover the background completely, just check it by changing the color of the artboard. If any white is showing, just resize it again with the Free Transform tool. Rename this layer Background Image. Just like with our photographer card, we'll be using this layer as a placeholder for any graphic you would like to use for the background. To do this, turn the shape into a smart object by right-clicking the layer and selecting Convert to Smart Object. Now double-click the Smart Object icon so we can insert the background image. So this particular card features a few of the sketches from this incredible hand-drawn doodle patterns pack from Envato Elements. Once you download the file, you'll be presented with all these patterns in both JPEG and PNG format. Select Hand-Drawn Pattern 3 and open it into Photoshop. Hold Ctrl-A to select this background, then copy and paste it onto a new layer above your rectangle placeholder. Once you place it, you'll notice that you're viewing the pattern at a much bigger size. But save the smart object first and check to see how it looks on the card. If you want more options for this pattern arrangement, select Layer 1 and hold Ctrl-J to create a copy. Resize this copy to make the pattern appear much smaller, allowing more doodles to take up space. Then select the Move tool and use the arrow keys to finely tune the position of the sketch. Personally, I like the size of this second pattern much better, so don't forget to save the smart object to apply the new background. Now let's set up our shapes. Create a new group and rename it Shapes. Then select the Rectangle tool and click on the canvas. Create a new rectangle at 420 by 199 pixels in this bright blue color. Since the file is in CMYK mode, bright colors don't show up as well, so we'll bring out the intensity of this color by right-clicking the layer and going to Blending Options. Create a color overlay with this new blue color, setting the blend mode to Overlay. Now use the Move tool to position the rectangle in the lower right corner using the arrow keys to help. Select the Rectangle tool again and click on the canvas. Create a new rectangle at 33 by 713 pixels with the same pastel blue color fill. Then move it to the left side of the card, making sure to give it plenty of room away from the edges. To apply the same layer style, right-click the first rectangle and click Copy Layer Style. Then go to the skinnier rectangle And now right-click to paste that same layer style. All we have left for this side of the card is to add your name and tagline. So create a new group for the text layers. Select the text tool and set the foreground color to white. Here I'll be using this fun, bright chalk font at a size of 15 pixels, placing the name Mary Jones on the lower right rectangle when we're finished. This playful font matches the casual look of the background, but as we flip through some other font choices, you'll also see that some serif fonts might work here as well. Create a new text layer at a size of 5 point for the job title or tagline. I'll set this font to Roboto Regular using the Move tool and arrow keys to center it underneath the name. We are almost finished with our front card, but if you'd like, you can also see how the background would look with other background choices. To do this, double-click the background smart object and save it with a different pattern or size. Here is what it would look like with the original pattern scaled at a much bigger size, and also what it could look like if you add one of the other doodle patterns from the same pack. Since I still like our first choice, I'll now add a quick drop shadow to this blue rectangle to create a little depth. Right-click the layer and go to Blending Options. Then add a black drop shadow with the following settings. Feel free to take this moment to color code these groups before moving on to the back of the card. Here is our completed front design. So just like before, we'll use our little file trick to help us make the back of this design with the exact same dimensions. So save a copy of this file by renaming it as the back of the artist card. Now go through all the layers and start deleting the details we no longer need. To keep in line with our branding and color scheme, let's change the color of the back to the same bright blue from before. Select the shape layer and set it to the first pastel blue. And now right-click to paste that same layer style. Save the smart object to see the new background. Now select this leftover shape group and rename it Patterns. Open the graphic for the hand-drawn 2 doodle in PNG format. The PNG versions are made on a transparent background, so they'll be much easier to insert right into our card. Select the rectangular marquee tool and make a selection around one of the middle sketches. Then copy and paste it onto a new layer inside the pattern group. Hold Ctrl-T to resize the pattern, making sure it stretches across the top of the card. Now open the second pattern, hand-drawn number 4, into Photoshop. Use the rectangular marquee tool to make a selection around any of these doodles that you'd like. Then copy and paste it onto a new layer within the Patterns group. Resize this pattern, letting it stretch across the bottom for more balance. Create a new group above the Patterns one dedicated to the shape layers. Then select the Rectangle tool and click on the canvas. Create a black rectangle at a size of 401 by 110 pixels and place it in the top center of the card. Here is where we'll write your name and job title for some contrast against the bright blue background. Now use the Rectangle tool again to create another black one at a much smaller size of 307 by 51 pixels. Place it off to the right. Next, let's create the last shape in this group. Select the Line tool and create a black line with a weight of 1 pixels right down the center. Readjust the height to 200 pixels. Then use the Move tool and arrow keys to position this line right where you need it. To finish this card, all we really need is the text. Unhide the text group from earlier. We won't need to adjust the size of the name, so just position it within the top rectangle. For a slight change, feel free to switch the tagline to Roboto Italic. Now the details of your card may vary from business to business, but I would suggest highlighting the things you're proud of. I'll create new text layers on the left side dedicated to being an author. So write out Author of in Roboto Italic at a size of 6 point. Now add the titles of the books or articles you love best. For this card, these book titles are totally made up, but I've still made sure to keep the children's book theme going by writing them all with silly and playful names. So create each new book title with the robotic italic font at a size of 8 point. To speed things up, I duplicated the text layers until I got to the word and, which I then lowered to a size of 7 point for a subtle change. Then create the last text layer, drawing with Miss Patience with the same settings as before. Feel free to take this moment to adjust the alignment of your text. Let's move on to the right side. So start by adding the website address. Write your website name or maryjones.com in Roboto regular with a size of 7 point. Then position it within the smaller black rectangle. Now include the phone number, email, and street address in the same font and size, but just bolded for more clarity. Keep aligning your text and shapes until you're happy with the result. Then finish up by color coding the layers for more organization. Here is the final back design of this card. Now that all the details are in place, you can try out different colors easily by simply clicking the Smart Object background and changing the color of the shape layer. Here is what it would look like in yellow, purple, and with a fun gradient overlay. You can customize it even further by checking with your printer. Add beautiful details like a raised ink effect to make your details even more tangible. Here's our complete artist card design. Now let's move on to the conclusion of this course, where we'll go over a final recap of everything we've learned. Hello everyone and welcome back to this course, How to Make Business Cards in Adobe Photoshop. Again, my name is Melody Nieves and I've been your instructor. I hope this course has given you a lot more confidence when it comes to tackling print design. Graphic design does not have to be a scary process, and with these incredible resources and tips, you'll be able to create professional designs faster than ever before. So with all that said, let's go over a final recap of everything we've learned. First, we started with the basics, tackling important steps like setting up the bleed lines and knowing the difference between RGB and CMYK formats for professional printing. Then we took a look at our designs. Each one was created with a particular theme in mind and supplemented by fantastic stocks and resources from Envato Elements. Starting with a floral design, we complemented it with amazing premium fonts and a clever location map on the back. Our next card featured a fun photographer theme, although you can also utilize the helpful smart objects to swap out the images you want at any time. Finally, our last card showed off the power of minimalism for a quick and creative business card. We made sure to highlight the best parts of ourself and our mock businesses while changing up the vibes completely with each design. Take your time with this course and be sure to come back to these videos for a refresher on any steps. For more design and digital art advice, feel free to follow me on social media for more helpful tips. As always, from all of us here at Envato Tuts Plus, thank you for watching and good luck.